Hey everybody, Shoebox Legends here. Thanks for joining me today for what I consider to be an addendum of sorts to my latest Hockey 101 episode. So I have what I plan to be a long-running installment here on the channel called Hockey 101, where we just get into various aspects of hockey card collecting, and they're meant to be sort of educational or reference videos. I've only done two so far. The first was a brief history of hockey cards and breaking them up into 5 different eras of hockey card collecting. And then the second episode, which came out a couple weeks back now, was on the WHA, the World Hockey Association. And there were a couple cards after I finished the episode that I realized I should have included and was kind of bummed about. But it went long as it was, and we kind of just covered all the different releases that came out during the WHA's existence, which was in the 1970s. And they were a rival league to the NHL that developed during the 1970s. If you want to learn more about that, I'll try to leave links below if I remember to that original episode on the WHA. But a couple things I wanted to cover in this episode. And the first was the first WHA set that came out. And this is an example here from that set featuring Jean-Claude Tremblay for the Quebec Nordiques. They were just high number cards in the standard 1972-73 WHA set. So this is card number 293. And these were just the highest series of WHA that year. So you could buy these in packs, and the end of your standard WHA set that was made up of NHL players had WHA players towards the end of the binder or the end of the box if you sorted them numerically. Well, in that high series set of packs, you could also pull these team cards that were they're not checklists, they're just a team logo card, is I think how they're known. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a logo of a team printed large on cardboard stock, and they're punch out, so you could punch them out to kind of play with them or put them on display. They had done these for the NHL teams in the lower series of WHA, but in the high series that included the WHA cards, they gave us WHA teams. And I've been fortunate enough to pick up a few of these over the years. They're not like impossibly rare, but they're actually kind of sneaky tough. So this is the Houston Aeros, as you can see here. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You get nothing on the back, although you can see like the punch out lines here, the perforation where you could punch this out of the backing. But essentially they're just the logos of the various teams that comprise the WHA in that first year in 1972. And of course, you know, famously, the teams changed so much over the years. Most of them went bankrupt or moved or changed ownership or some combination of the above. But it's cool to at least get a point in time look at, you know, the franchises that started it off. I think their logos are just awesome. They had some really cool, like, creative names. I do have others of these that I'll probably show off on the channel in the future. But for today, just chose the Houston Aeros logo to put on display, the team that Gordie Howe and his 2 sons would play for in the mid-1970s. So I thought that was a cool sort of postmark to the comment on the original WHA hockey cards. I wanted to include that. I've got 3 cards to look at today, that team card being the first. The second one is an autograph. And this card represents the big star of the WHA, the guy that they were able to lull away from the NHL to really bring a lot of name recognition and prestige to their new league. And that was Bobby Hull, the Golden Jet, hockey's, you know, best goal scorer throughout the late 50s and 1960s, and an incredible personality. He just had like that it factor, and was able to find an autograph of his recently that I just thought was so awesome. I could not pass it up. It is from his time in the WHA with the Jets. Check this out, from Upper Deck Masterpieces. It's beautiful Bobby Hull auto, certified by PSA DNA. He signs a lot. He's almost like Pete Rose or a Bob Feller. For those of you that are baseball autograph collectors, Bobby has spent a lot of time in his later years signing his name. So his autograph is not rare or particularly expensive, but he's one of the best goal scorers in the history of the league. And what attracted me to this card specifically is that he was the man for the WHA. They famously signed him to a $1 million plus contract. I think he was the first hockey figure to ever get 7 figures. in a contract, due to that move to the WHA. They kind of placed a big bet on him to be the namesake of their league, and really kind of paid off, I guess, at least in the early days. They were able to lure some other big stars over once they had landed Bobby. But I just thought this, which is courtesy of Upper Deck Masterpieces, this card is just tremendous. Upper Deck Masterpieces only existed for 1 year as a set in hockey. That's a story for another day. I do have the full set of these because I thought it was just a beautiful release. Really well done paintings. Wasn't searching for this card in particular, but all the discussion that I've had and pulling of cards that I've done around the WHA recently, when I stumbled across this, I knew I had to have it. Due to his, prolific signing, this was had for only $30. It might have even been less than $30, but I just couldn't be happier because I think it's a really cool WHA era item. On the back, Upper Deck curiously refers to it as the WHL, which I've never heard, World Hockey League, but so I'm not sure what's up with that, but it does reference his $1 million signing, which was a record at the time when he was pulled away from the NHL. And I just thought, based on the historical significance of him being kind of the guy starting off that league, plus his individual significance as a player and my love of the Masterpieces set, there was no way I could leave that card behind at, $30 or under price point. And then the third and final card that I have for today's Hockey 101 Addendum on the WHA represents the folding of the league. So the WHA was formed in 72, only lasted a few years, and after the 78-79 season, they folded up shop. But all was not lost, and I referenced this in the first video that I did, but 4 of the WHA franchises were absorbed into the NHL and became NHL franchises. All 4 of these are still around to this day. However, 3 out of the 4 have moved to new locations and taken on new team names. So in the first video that I did, I showed O-Pee-Chee cards from the 79 O-Pee-Chee set that represented the NHL entry of like the Hartford Whalers, I think is who I chose. In today's installment, this is the Topps version, and Topps, being a shorter checklist, handled it a little bit differently. They made just a single card that showed the 4 franchises that survived the WHA and then merged into the NHL. And those are, of course, the Edmonton Oilers, which is the one franchise that still exists exactly, as it did back then. The Whalers, my beloved Hartford Whalers, were formed when the WHA folded. Of course, they left in the mid-90s, became the Carolina Hurricanes. Quebec Nordiques, sadly, no longer a team, and the Winnipeg Jets are a team, but it's not this team. Long story and one for another day. But suffice it to say, I've always thought this card is really, really neat. It just represents a lot of hockey history here with the WHA going away and these 4 teams all joining the NHL at once. I like the way that Topps laid this out and did it on a single card. I think if you're fascinated by this era, like I am, it's kind of cool that you can get individual cards of each of these teams in the O-Pee-Chee release, and then you can get the Topps card that represents the complete folding of the league with all 4 teams. So I like the different takes on that. Here's a look at the back, and it just talks about, gives some basic stats on each of the teams that are joining the league and who some of their top players were at the time. I actually have this whole set in a binder, 1979 Topps, because it's my favorite hockey set of all time. But I picked up this graded card only recently, got this PSA 6 for $17, and I just thought that was too good to pass up. And just like the Bobby Hull auto that we looked at, one card prior to this, the history that this slabbed hockey card represents is just too cool. And I thought it was a card that was important to have in my graded hockey card collection as well as, my 79-80 Topps set. So there are the 3 additional WHA cards that I have for you today that didn't make the cut in the original Hockey 101, but I thought they were each, important enough and cool enough that it would be nice to group them together and do a follow-up video. So I hope you enjoyed this. Really appreciate you stopping by to check it out. And I'll certainly be back in the very near future with some more sports card content. Until then, take care and enjoy the hobby.